17 years before the world ended, the earth tried to give a warning. In the year 62 AD, a massive earthquake shattered the region of Campania. Grand villas collapsed into dust. Ancient marble statues of the gods, Jupiter, Apollo, Minerva, were violently thrown face first into the cobbled streets. To anyone else, it would have been an omen, but to the Romans it was merely an engineering challenge. They were the undisputed masters of the known world. They had conquered Gaul, subjugated Egypt, and built a Mediterranean empire of unparalleled wealth. A little trembling earth was nothing they couldn't build their way out of. So they simply rebuilt, grandier, taller, heavier. They did not know that the earthquake was not an isolated tectonic event. It was the mountain waking up. To understand the tragedy of Pompeii, you must first understand its arrogance. This was not some backwater provincial outpost. Pompeii was the Las Vegas and Miami of the Roman Empire rolled into one. It was a playground of excess built on the sun-drenched coast of the Bay of Naples. It was home to roughly 20,000 people. Patrician senators from Rome built sprawling vacation villas here, complete with azure swimming pools, heated floors, and walls covered in vibrant, masterful frescoes. The air smelled intensely of sea salt and garum, the fermented, pungent fish sauce that Pompeii produced and exported across the entire empire. The streets were loud, chaotic, and fiercely alive. You could walk past the Thermopolia, ancient fast food joints where hot spiced wine and meats were served from deep terracotta vats embedded in the counters. You could hear the roar of the massive amphitheater, where gladiators spilled blood into the sand for the entertainment of the elite. It was a masterpiece of human ambition, but it was built on a bomb, and the fuse had been burning for 700 years. Beneath the Italian peninsula, the African tectonic plate is relentlessly grinding beneath the Eurasian plate. This violent geological collision creates a subduction zone, melting rock deep within the Earth's mantle. For centuries, this superheated, pressurized magma had been quietly pooling into a massive chamber directly beneath Mount Vesuvius. Over the decade following the 62 AD earthquake, the signs of this filling chamber became impossible to ignore if you knew what to look for. First, the monumental Aqua Augusta, one of the greatest aqueducts in the Roman world, mysteriously began to fail. Underground springs that had flowed for generations suddenly dried up as the ground beneath them literally swelled and warped from the rising magma. Then came the invisible poison. Shepherds in the lush green meadows on the slopes of Vesuvius reported finding their entire flocks of sheep dead in the grass. There was no blood, no signs of a predator. The animals had simply suffocated. They had wandered into invisible, low-lying pools of carbon dioxide venting from deep fissures in the cracking earth. Yet the Romans had no word for volcano. To them, Vesuvius was just a fertile, green mountain covered in rich vineyards. For centuries, history books have confidently told us that the eruption happened on August 24th. But modern forensic archaeology tells a much darker, colder story. When excavators finally dug deep into the ash, they found anomalies that didn't fit a blistering Italian summer. They found iron braziers loaded with heavy heat and fuel. They found victims wrapped in thick, heavy woolen winter cloaks. In the preserved market stalls, they found autumn fruits, heavy ripe pomegranates, dried figs, and walnuts. But the final nail in the coffin of the August theory was a single silver coin, a denarius featuring the face of Emperor Titus. Historical records prove that this specific coin was not minted until the second week of September 79 AD. It wasn't the height of summer. It was late October. The air was already carrying a bitter chill. The harvest was in. The storehouses were full. The people of Pompeii were preparing for winter, completely unaware they were living in the final hours of their history. At approximately 1 p.m. on October 24th, the geological tension reaches its breaking point. Deep underground, the rising magma encounters the region's vast water table. The water flash boils instantly into steam, expanding its volume by over 1,000 times in a fraction of a second. This triggers a catastrophic chain reaction. The solid plug of hardened rock that has capped Mount Vesuvius for centuries violently shatters. The pressure release is mathematically unfathomable. In a matter of seconds, the volcano ejects thermal energy equivalent to 100,000 times the nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima. From the bustling forum of Pompeii, the citizens stop dead in their tracks. The ground convulses so violently that marble columns snap and roof tiles shatter into the streets. They look toward the mountain. 18 miles across the Bay of Naples, at the naval base of Misenum, the commander of the Roman fleet stands on a hillside watching the nightmare unfold. His name is Pliny the Elder. He's a renowned naturalist, a military genius, and a man of boundless curiosity. As he observes the terrifying pine tree cloud dominating the horizon, a frantic messenger arrives by boat. He carries a desperate plea from a noblewoman named Rectina, whose villa lies at the foot of the mountain. The roads are already impassable. The only escape, she writes, is by sea. Pliny does not hesitate. He orders the launch of the massive quadrirams, the heavy multi-decked wooden warships of the Imperial Navy. It is the first recorded emergency amphibious rescue mission in human history. Fortune favors the brave, he famously declares to his helmsman, ordering the fleet to row directly into the mouth of hell. But as the heavy warships approach the coastline of Herculaneum and Pompeii, the environment itself turns against them. The sea begins to boil and recede, exposing jagged reefs as the earth swells. Worse, the water is choked with massive floating rafts of white pumice, several feet thick, making it look as though the ocean has turned to solid stone. The wind, acting like a massive vacuum, is being sucked violently from the sea toward the volcano to feed the massive updraft of the eruption column. Pliny's fleet is caught in this gale. They cannot land. They cannot rescue Rectina. Forced to abandon the primary mission, Pliny orders the fleet south to the town of Stabii. He's trapped on the beach, putting on a brave face for his terrified men by demanding to take a bath and eat a meal, pretending the apocalypse falling around them is nothing to fear. Back in Pompeii, the situation is shifted from terrifying to mathematically fatal. As the volcano empties the upper layers of its magma chamber, it begins violently expelling deeper, older, and vastly heavier rock. The rain of light white pumice suddenly shifts to dense, heavy, jagged gray lithics. By midnight, the ash and rock are falling at an astonishing rate of 6 inches every hour. If you chose to stay inside your villa, the reality of your mistake is now crashing down upon you. Roman architecture is beautiful, but it is deeply flawed for this specific disaster. The roofs of Pompeii are completely flat, engineered to catch rainwater for indoor pools. They were never designed to hold thousands of pounds of solid rock. All across the pitch-black, suffocating city, the terrifying sound of snapping timber echoes through the darkness. Thick wooden cross beams are bowing under the immense crushing weight of 3 feet of dense volcanic stone. Slowly, one by one, the roofs begin to collapse violently, crushing families as they huddle in the dark. For those who survive the collapses, panic finally overrides logic. They try to flee. But when they push against their heavy wooden front doors, the doors don't move. The pumice is piled up 10 feet high in the narrow streets outside. The doors are barricaded by the earth itself. There's no way out. The air grows thick with yellow sulfur, burning the eyes and throat. The only light comes from the terrifying, jagged blue flashes of volcanic lightning arcing across the ash cloud directly above the city. Pompeii is buried alive, waiting for the final blow. At 1 a.m., the dynamics of the eruption change completely. The volcano begins to run out of propulsive energy. The colossal thermal engine driving the ash 20 miles into the stratosphere stutters. The massive pillar of gas holding millions of tons of superheated rock suspended above the earth can no longer fight gravity. It collapses under its own staggering weight. This creates a phenomenon the Romans could never have comprehended, and one that modern volcanologists fear more than anything else: the pyroclastic surge. When the column collapses, it creates an avalanche of toxic, superheated gas, ash, and pulverized glass, glowing a demonic cherry red in the pitch-black night. This fluidized mass of death races down the slopes of Vesuvius at speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour. The first surge does not hit Pompeii. It follows the terrain directly into the neighboring, ultra-wealthy resort town of Herculaneum. Down by the beach of Herculaneum, over 300 people are hiding in the arched stone boathouses, looking out at the boiling sea, waiting desperately for a rescue that will never come. The pyroclastic surge hits them at over 900 degrees Fahrenheit. The thermal shock is so extreme, so instantaneously brutal, that human biology ceases to function. Their brains boil within their skulls, causing the bone to literally shatter from the steam pressure before their nervous systems can even register the sensation of pain. The intense heat causes their muscles to instantly contract, snapping their bodies into a defensive, pugilistic pose. In a fraction of a second, in a single violent instant, the city of Pompeii dies. Over the next few hours, the eruption slowly exhausts itself. By the time the sun finally penetrates the gloom 2 days later, the landscape is unrecognizable. The vibrant, loud, bustling city of 20,000 people has vanished. It is completely entombed beneath 20 feet of solidified volcanic rock. The shoreline has been pushed miles outward. The top of the mountain is gone, replaced by a smoking, jagged crater. The Roman Empire will eventually fall. Civilizations will rise. World wars will be fought. The Renaissance will spark, and the modern world will be born, all while this city sleeps perfectly undisturbed in the pitch-black earth. When archaeologists finally dig deep enough in the 1860s, they notice something strange. Deep within the compacted ash, they find hollow cavities, unexplained voids in the rock containing human bones. A brilliant Italian archaeologist named Giuseppe Fiorelli realizes what they are. He pours liquid white plaster into these hollow spaces, lets it harden, and chips away to ash. He doesn't just find statues. He extracts the exact frozen milliseconds of human terror. The plaster perfectly captures the negative space left behind by vaporized bodies. He reveals a mother desperately shielding her child, a man lying on his back, still clutching a leather pouch of gold coins that couldn't save him, a chained dog contorted on its back in the agony of suffocation, couples holding each other in a final dark embrace. Pompeii is not just a graveyard. It is a terrifying, perfect mirror. It shows us exactly how fragile our grand empires, our wealth, and our technological arrogance truly are when the earth decides it is done with us. And Mount Vesuvius, it is not dead. Today, over 3 million people live in its immediate red zone, building their homes on the exact same volcanic soil that buried the Romans. The mountain is quiet, but it is only sleeping.